Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Oh, that's so exciting. On behalf of the Office of International Affairs, I'd like to welcome all of you to the University of Chicago. I know many of you have come a very long way, are very excited, maybe a little anxious and scared. So thank you very much for coming. It's wonderful to see so many of you here. Usually we only have about 15 or 20 parents in this session, so excellent job coming to support your students. I am Jen Nafziger. I am the International Student Advisor for the college in the Office of International Affairs. So this is the International Parent Session, just in case you haven't guessed that yet. So everyone in the right place? Excellent. So today what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about the Office of International Affairs, what we do for your students, the services we offer, programs, immigration, that sort of thing, as well as go over some basic immigration questions and regulations, as well as FERPA, which you might have heard of, the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, and how that relates to international students, on-campus resources, the Chicago winter, and also we'll leave time at the end for all of you to answer your questions. We have some additional copies of this coming, so is there anyone who hasn't received a handout in the back? Okay. We'll have a few extra copies coming in a couple minutes. We'll get you one. All right. So on the very first page of this, you see OIA Overview at the top. This is our mission statement. We're dedicated to enhancing a vibrant international community and to fostering cross-cultural experience. We welcome, support, and strengthen diversity through advocacy and holistic service. Enriching connections is our goal. So basically what we do is we help students. We help international students. We do this in a variety of ways. One very important thing to understand about our office is where we sit in relation to all of our international students. So our office provides all the information, makes it available for students, sends reminders, has programs, and tries to put as much information out there as possible, as well as is available for questions anytime your students ask for them. However, ultimately, it is your students' responsibility to maintain their immigration status. So understanding all of the F1 and J1 immigration regulations, complying with all local and federal laws, that will be your students' responsibility. So we help as much as we can, but it will be on them to really make sure to understand and follow through with anything they need to. That said, we're very helpful. I'm available a lot, and I send a lot of emails to your students. They will probably complain to me about it at some point, but I will continue sending them emails. So with that emails, we communicate with the students. In the college, in the incoming class, we have almost 200 students who are international, so sponsored in F1 and J1 status at the university. We primarily work with students who are in F1 and J1 status, but we also provide support for students in other statuses, such as H4, or other statuses that might be sponsored by your own jobs or work in the US. We communicate with students through a listserv called International Students. The only thing we send out on this is important immigration information, reminders on taxes, how to apply for a social security number, that kind of information. All students are automatically added to this list, and they cannot remove themselves. So they will get the information. Whether or not they read it, that's on them, but I will send it to them. Our website, internationalaffairs.uchicago.edu, contains all the information they would ever want or need or even think about wanting. So a lot of the basic immigration regulations are available on that website. So if you have questions or they have questions, that's an excellent place to start. It has everything you need about applying for a social security number or work authorization or dropping below full-time enrollment or anything like that. The website is a terrific resource. We have a Facebook page. You're welcome to like it. It is full of events and services that we offer to our students. So that's another way we keep them in the loop of what's going on. And lastly, we have our I am available for appointments for students, so one-on-one appointments in person, on the phone, or even Skype. For students like in the summer, they're home, they can Skype appointment with me if they have immigration questions. So I am available for in-person appointments. I want to quickly go over some of the programs and events we have specifically for international students. One thing we do every month is International Coffee Hour. This is a two-part program. There's a coffee hour social and a coffee hour workshop every month. The coffee hour social is an opportunity for students to come together, meet each other, socialize, and make friends and connections. For those of you who have studied in other countries or lived in other countries for a long time, you know that at first when you move somewhere, it can be very scary and alienating. You might have culture shock, and the best way to combat this is to make connections and meet other people. So we offer this monthly social opportunity to do that. The Coffee Hour Workshop series is a series where every month we provide lunch for all the students for free, just pizza, but they still come. And we learn about something important to international students, such as a session on getting a driver's license in the US. Our first one of the year is a breakdown of the US health insurance system. We might have a workshop on social security numbers or safety on campus. So these coffee hour workshops are a good opportunity for students to learn about daily life in the US and how to navigate things that might become tricky because they're international students. With that, we also have quarterly social events. So a big blowout every quarter. In the fall, so October 21st, I think, we have ice cream social. So usually about 400 or 500 students come out. It's a really good opportunity for students to meet each other. We have the best ice cream in Chicago at this, all homemade. Bunch of different flavors, make your own sundae. It's very delicious. In the winter, we have an ice skating social. So students from countries or places where there's never any snow or who have never been ice skating, even if they're from a country that has snow, have never been ice skating, we offer that opportunity to students. We actually have an ice rink right on the midway here, so that's a fun option to do in the winter. In the spring, we do something Chicago-based. So last year we had Chicago blues. Some blues musicians came in, dancing, all of that. Hot dogs, big Chicago food. So those happen every quarter. And then in the summer, we have a carnival. As part of our office, in addition to working with students, we also work with international employees and spouses, and many of them have children here on campus, so we also support them. Ways that international students can talk to us, one thing we have is the International Student Advisory Board. So this year, the board is made up of 21 students from 20 different countries from all across the university, both college students and graduate students. They represent the international student body. We meet with them monthly to address concerns or to give feedback, criticism, compliments, and to kind of make the life of international students easier on campus. So if your students ever have something that they're angry about or they're not sure what to do, they can contact me or they can contact the advisory board. We also have informational programs and workshops. So we hold regular workshops on work authorization, for example, and some travel workshops. In addition, the last one, year-long career prep program. So our office works with career advancement, which you might have met with already or you will meet with later in the day, to do programming specifically for international students to address the needs of being employed in the US if you are not a US citizen or permanent resident. So we have a year-long program of preparation, including resume overviews, cover letter workshops, interviewing skills, We also have a monthly walk-in hour where an advisor from our office and an advisor from career advancement will sit together with the student and answer all of those work and work authorization questions at one time. So that's a very good opportunity for international students to help get the career prep they want if they're interested in working in the US after graduation, as many of them end up being. All right. So are there any questions at this point about sort of what our office does or about any of those programs or services before we move on to the more meaty immigration piece?
In terms of the summer career programs that I heard about in the previous session, for international students to apply to those, are there generally a lot of restrictions in terms of what programs is intended for, or is it generally available?
Sure. For most University of Chicago programs, they're open to international students as well. Most of those summer programs, international students will be able to do without doing anything else. Like just being here, they can go ahead and do. For some of those programs, international students will require additional work authorization, either through our office or through the US government. So it will just be a matter of, if the student's interested, checking with our office to make sure they can do the opportunity and what they would need to do in order to work. And I get those questions all the time. All right.
What about health insurance? What are they covered under?
Health insurance?
Yeah.
So all students at the University of Chicago are required to have health insurance. If a student is coming in from abroad, all students are automatically enrolled into the university's health insurance program, and they'll have to apply for a waiver if they have an outside healthcare provider or health insurance provider. If you need to apply for a waiver, you can contact the Health Services Department and they can walk you through that process. Yep.
Right, but is it all encompassing for international students?
I'm sorry?
The health insurance is all encompassing, it covers everything.
You'll have to review the plan to make sure what is covered. It's a standard student insurance policy, but all of the policy information is on the Health Services website. Did you have a question with that?
In August this year, we received a package by mail where there is a form which we can sign, and then we can, with the consent of our child, and we can access this education reference. So I sent in the form to the college, and so what's next?
Sure, so that will be a little separate from the immigration piece. So in that case, you should contact the Dean of Students office in the college. We'll actually get to that piece in a little bit with the FERPA, the Family Educational Rights Act. So that's a little separate from the immigration piece, but if you're not sure if that arrived, you should contact the Dean of Students office. All right.
Does the office assist in visas for the study abroad program?
So for our office, I kind of like to refer to it as import almost. We bring students into the US. We do have a robust study abroad office that will assist students who want to study in countries that are not the US. If an international student wants to participate in a study abroad program, in most cases that's completely fine, as long as they'll still be considered enrolled by the university. If they have any questions about study abroad and as an international student how that works, they can contact me and I'll be happy to help them through it. Yeah. All right. So it sounds like we're having some more immigration questions, so I wanted to just bring a few things to your attention. As I said before, ultimately it's the student's responsibility to maintain the immigration status, but there are some important things that everyone should know about studying an F1 or J1 status in the US. Have any of you studied in the US as an international student before? A couple of you, yeah. So as you might know, regulations for these things change about every 9 months. At least there's one minor change. So keeping in touch with our office is always the best way to find out all the most up-to-date information. The first immigration regulation for F1 and J1 students to maintain their immigration status. And when I say maintain immigration status, what I mean is stay legally in the US, not violate their status or do anything wrong that will cause negative consequences for them. So the first one's full-time enrollment. International students are required to be full-time enrolled for every single quarter that is listed on their I-20. So they cannot just say, I want an easy quarter, so I'm going to take 2 classes this quarter. They have to be full-time enrolled every quarter. In the college, that's 3 courses, so 300 units. There are a few exceptions. For example, if a student has a medical issue, this could be physical, mental health issue, they can apply for a reduced course load through our office. But without the exceptions, all students need to be full-time enrolled. Oh, thank you. Just pass those that way just in case anyone needs an extra one. Thank you very much. Any questions on full-time enrollment? No? Perfect.
How many courses is the minimum for the classes here?
For international students, the minimum will be 3 courses a quarter. In the summer, there is an exception to the rule that summer is the vacation quarter, so your students do not need to be enrolled full-time in the summer. They can be, but they do not have to be. Our next...
If they take one in the summer, does that mean they can take us during the fall?
Yep, 3 courses every quarter.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
My question is, do you, when they're all freshmen, and it's obviously quite rigorous academically, do you recommend 2, 3, or 4, or let's say this, one would say is the average last year's international freshman class? Did they take 3 or 4 classes in their first term?
Most international students just stick to 3 courses across. They can work with their academic advisor to see what would be right for them. But I have the general feeling that most academic advisors would recommend just the 3 to begin with to get used to University of Chicago and the rigorous environment that it has. Especially international students that might be coming from academic systems where they've excelled but might be majorly different or even slightly different from the US system and UChicago in particular.
Can I just have a follow-up? Do you
Sure.
have a feeling that in general the international students ease into the university quickly, or are there teething problems? Again, I appreciate they're obviously extremes, but what would be your experience?
Sure, I would say international or domestic students have an adjustment period, definitely. I mean, I attended this university and I went to school in the US at rigorous institutions, and it was an adjustment period for me as well. I mean, the first quarter, no matter who you are, is going to be intense. I think across the board there are different levels of adjustment to that, but I think by the end of the first year, you pretty much have figured it out of how it feels. All right, our next one is visa versus status. So in the immigration world, we throw around a lot of terms that can be a little confusing. 2 terms that get confused a lot are visa and status. So some people say I'm here on an F1 visa, or my visa status, or my status is expired, or my visa is expired, can I stay here, that kind of thing. So visa and status are 2 separate things. The status is the F1 or J1 status. It is the reason you are studying in the US and you're legally here. Your status or your student status is determined by your I-20 for F1 students or DS 2019 for J1 students. So that's what determines the student status.
What's the difference between I-20
and DS 2019? Sure. So there are 2 different types of immigration documents, and they are different because they are for different statuses. So F1 and J1 status are both Department of Homeland Security approved immigration statuses that international students can study here in. They're both student statuses. There are some minor differences. For college students, there's not too much of a difference. If you're an F1 student, the immigration document you'll receive is an I-20. If you're a J1 student, the immigration document you'll receive is a DS 2019. So you'll have one or the other, not both. The visa is the actual stamp that goes into the passport. So that's the actual thing you have to apply for, get your picture taken in your passport. That's the visa. The status on your I-20 or DS 2019 has an end date on it, and this end date corresponds to the student's program end date. So for all of the students who are in the 4-year program, the end date is in June 2017, when the student will graduate. The visa, so the actual stamp in the passport, might vary from country to country, student to student, and embassy to embassy. So some students may get a 7-year visa for a 4-year program. Some students may get a 1-year visa for a 4-year program. It just depends. One thing to note is that that visa has an expiration date on it, whenever that is, 1 year, 4 years. While the student is in the US, it's okay if that visa expires. So it's fine if the visa expires, the actual stamp in the passport, as long as the student's status, so F1 or J1, is still valid. So if your student says, "Yo, my visa's expired," that might not be a problem, but they should still contact our office. The visa does need to be valid anytime the student is entering the US. So if the visa has expired and they go home for the summer, they'll have to apply for a new visa in order to re-enter. Okay. Any questions on the visa?
Not specifically the visa, but my daughter's here on that I-20 form, but her passport will expire in 2.5 years.
Okay.
And my understanding is the passport numbers on that I-20 form, so when she gets a new passport, it's a different number?
No.
You can combine, right, I use my passport with my.
So we just take it and put it in the new passport, even though the numbers won't be the same?
You don't have to keep the I-20 in the passport. Usually it's not in the passport. If they come to our office, we usually take it out. I think sometimes the embassies will staple them in there, but they don't need to be in there. Yeah, they're separate documents. And over the course of their time here, the students will probably get, at least at some point, a new I-20 or a new DS 2019 with updated information, maybe work authorization. So they'll pick that up from our office. They should keep all original copies they've received.
So to make it clear for me, when the visa expires, a person can go home outside, can get the flight outside the USA, and then renovate the visa at home, at the homeland. Yes? Is that so?
Correct.
In order to come back. Okay.
Yes. So on the way out, the U.S. government, you can leave all you want, but it's coming in. That's the challenge.
So what happens the other way around? Because I think my daughter has got a visa that is much more than the validity of the I-20 form.
Sure, and that's completely fine. So what will happen is once she's done with her program, that visa will no longer be valid. So even though it will have a couple years left on it, she has no status to enter on. For example, maybe if she moved on to a master's degree program or a PhD program somewhere, she might be able to continue to use that, but it's okay, that's fine.
So every time that she comes into the state, she needs to show the I-20 as immigration.
Correct. So this is a perfect segue to our next section, travel and reentry. So while students are studying in the US, as long as they are maintaining regular status, they could come and go from the US as they please, on vacation, for the weekend, during the week, during the summer, whenever. However, every time that the student re-enters the US, they will need to provide to Customs their I-20 or DS 2019. This has to be original and the most valid, or the most recent. They will need, of course, their passport, valid at least 6 months into the future. They will need a valid F1 or J1 visa. So every time they come into the US, they do have to show their passport, visa, and I-20. So even though they have the visa, they still need the I-20 or DS 2019.
Excuse me. What happens if the I-20 is lost?
The I-20 is lost. They can come to our office and we will reprint it for them.
Oh, it's
That's an original?
That's an original, yes. Yes. So our front desk offers several services for international students. If they lose their DS 2019 or I-20, they can come to our front desk anytime during business hours and walk in and get a new reprint.
Is there a fee attached to that?
No. We don't charge fees for things. Maybe we should, but we don't currently.
Excuse me, so can you keep multiple copies?
I'm sorry, I can't.
In that case, can the student or us keep multiple copies of the I-20 just in case one?
We wouldn't recommend you do that because the student always has to show the most recent one. There'd really be no reason to do that. We recommend that they keep their own copies. Like you can scan it and keep it as a copy, but you should only have one valid original at one time.
So if they forget to bring it home when they come home for a visit, we have something.
If they forget to bring it home, they should contact our office as soon as possible. We may be able to mail them a new one in time for them to re-enter. If not, we have another way we might be able to help them enter.
So whenever, sorry, one last one. So whenever you issue a new I-20, it's a totally new I-20. It's not like you are printing a copy of the existing one.
We are printing a copy. So the I-20 or DS 2019 is a paper representation of their CVIS record. CVIS is the online electronic system that contains all of the immigration information. So whenever we print an I-20 or DS 2019, it's a record of what's in CVIS. So it might be slightly different or it might be exactly the same, just a new copy. The CVIS number will be the same. You won't have to repay the CVIS fee if there's a new I-20 printed. It's just a paper copy of the electronic record.
Yes, I was just going to say, my son did not get an I-20 form in start of the distance. I think that's what kept the choice from so,
The I-94 is electronic now, but if your student's in F1 or J1 status, they should have an I-20 or DS 2019 to enter the country. If they're in F1 or J1 status.
The I-20 needs to be signed by somebody?
Correct. So the I-20 is signed both by our office. So someone like me who's approved by Department of Homeland Security to sign and vouch on those documents. We're called designated school officials, or DSOs. So signed by a DSO. Our front desk receptionist is a DSO, so she will print and sign the document. The document also must be signed by the student. And if the student is under 18 years old, also by the parent, it's supposed to be signed. Okay. Any more questions about travel, reentry, or documents in general?
Just to apply.
Oh, okay.
In case you get transferred from your home location, need a new I-20, it's okay because.
If you're transferred to a new school, if you transfer to a new school?
No.
The parents get transferred.
Oh, for I-20? The I-20 is the student's record, so it doesn't have anything to do with anyone else except for the student. So if, for example, you're here in an immigration status that changes, that won't affect the student's immigration status unless everyone becomes permanent residents or U.S. citizens at one point. Sorry, just a moment, I can't hear you. Sure, if a student needs to extend their I-20, they'll just contact our office. We'll give them instructions. They will need to extend their record before the end date on the I-20. All processing requests for our office take under a week, or about a week. And then detailed instructions for that process and all of our processes are on our website. Okay. Before we get, okay.
Because here you said that before a student leave campus and depart the United States, they should obtain a letter of full-time enrollment and copy of their transcript. Every time they have to travel, they need these.
So these are recommended documents or suggested documents. They're not required documents, but they can help support a student's entry if for some reason they're having a hard time entering the country. In most cases, students won't need these, but if they want to, they can have these additional documents for support.
For example, in Christmas, when do you recommend them asking you to have these?
Again, their transcript, they can request for themselves anytime on the UChicago portal. The full-time enrollment letter, also available at our front desk. anytime during business hours. So our next big piece we'll talk about is employment. I know probably you have a lot of questions about employment. We'll just go over briefly some of the options. Employment is extremely complicated, or not extremely, very complicated for F1 and J1 students. So we meet with the students a lot to talk about their options and what they can do. For any off-campus employment, students have to have work authorization. So what that means is it has to be approved. It has to be printed on their I-20 that they're allowed to work. There are a couple different types of off-campus employment. All of them are described on our website with application instructions and eligibility requirements for all of them. That's basically my employment talk. So all the information is on the website. For on-campus employment, students can do that without additional authorization. So for example, working at the library or researching for a professor or something, they can engage in on-campus employment. If they have a question about whether or not something is considered on-campus employment, guess what? They can contact me and I will let them know. As I mentioned before, career advancements, so the career office at University of Chicago offers a lot of programs, not just with us, but on their own to help prepare students and international students for the US job market. They also provide services, like I said, cover letter, resume building. Resume building is a big one for international students because each country has such different formats for resumes. Some places you put all of your family information and your photo and what status you're in, where in the US we put very minimal personal information on here. So we often work with international students to help make US-ready resumes that are just the typical US format. All right, before we move on, any questions about employment?
You said for off-campus, off-campus opportunities.
Correct. It will depend. It will either be our office or the US government, depending on the job. And that's where it gets pretty detailed and complicated. So it's best if a student kind of starts with the job and then we go from there. All right, yeah.
So you don't need any authorization for on-campus employment?
In most cases, yes. What I would recommend if is for a student to contact me before they engage in any kind of employment to make sure that it is going to fulfill their immigration requirements. I mean, if it's like at the library, clearly on campus, okay, that's fine. But, all right, did you have a question? Did someone over here? Okay, next big one, Social Security numbers. I'm sure if you've been here for a couple days and you've been trying to get things set up for your student, you keep getting asked for Social Security numbers, and you probably don't have one for your student. So Social Security numbers, originally created to track employees in a payroll system, now are used for almost everything from applying for a cell phone to signing up for utilities in an apartment, getting everything set up, bank accounts, all of that asks for a Social Security number. So sorry. F1 and J1 students are not automatically eligible for Social Security numbers. So just by nature of being here in F1 or J1 status, students can't apply for an SSN. To be eligible for an SSN, a student has to have both a job and work authorization. So in the case, excuse me. So in the case of the library job before, the student has on-campus work authorization and they have a job, so they could apply for a Social Security number. So in order to be eligible, job and work authorization. Detailed instructions on how to apply for the SSN are available, of course, on our website. We do offer some support for that process. The other tax number we talked about is called an ITIN, or Individual Taxpayer Identification Number. And what this is for is students who are receiving some kind of taxable income but do not have a job. Examples of this might be financial aid. So students of yours who have financial aid or stipends grants or awards through their time here might need an ITIN in order to get that award. Students can apply for ITINs through our office. Again, detailed instructions are on our website for that. Any questions about Social Security numbers or ITINs? If a student needs an ITIN, they'll know their financial aid, the individual taxpayer identification number. It is for tax recording purposes. It's for scholarships that are taxable, but the student's not eligible for a Social Security number.
So if you don't have any employment or reason for employment, you can't get one, nor do you need one.
Correct. Well, you don't need one for tax purposes, but as you might encounter, they'll ask for it for phones.
So
Correct.
it's a social good. So what do you do? Just
So there are,
Pay a $500.
yeah, there are ways to get around the Social Security number requirement for getting a phone, getting a bank account, setting up utilities. All of those sort of workarounds are available on our website in our daily life section. So for example, for the phone, you might have to pay an extra deposit and then you can get it. For the next part, we've been talking about taxes. All students in F1 and J1 status are required to file tax forms with the US government every single year they're present in the US. This doesn't mean they'll have to pay taxes, but they do have to file some kind of tax form. We send out information every year about this requirement. We provide free tax filing software for them. There are different deadlines for students who receive income and students who don't receive income, but every single student in F1 or J1 status is required by law to file taxes every year.
If they don't have an SSN, how do they do that?
If they don't have an SSN, then they won't have any income. So it's a tax form, it's not a tax return.
They're not asking for an SSN number.
They're not asking for an SSN number on it.
Is there a legal age to file taxes? Like 18 or 21?
If they're here in F1 or J status, they have to file taxes. Even if you have a child who's a baby, you'd still have to file taxes if they're in F1 or J1 status for that person. Again, it's not necessarily a tax return, but it's a tax form that basically says, I did not receive any income.
What is the deadline for the filing?
It's April 15th for students who have income and June 1st typically for students who have received no income.
Income includes stipend payments.
It can, it depends on the type of the stipend. Well, we have tax workshops where tax experts come in and talk, and we provide the information to students. Our next one, driver's license and state IDs. So if a student has a Social Security number, they're eligible to apply for an Illinois driver's license, so actual Illinois driver's license. Without a Social Security number, they could apply for a temporary driver's license. And if they have a driving license from their home country, they can drive, pardon me, they can drive in Illinois without any additional license. They'll need to have their original license with them, and that will vary from state to state. Man, I'm just coughing. That will vary from state to state, but in Illinois, you can drive, F1 and J1 students can drive with a driving license from their home country. I'm sorry? As far as we know, no. The rules of the road book just says that they can do it. It doesn't say that there's an expiration date on it. All right.
How the students learn the deadline to fill in the tax form?
Sure, we spam them with emails. Yes, we start emailing them probably in January about taxes.
Do you also send gentle reminders to the parents?
If you get on our mailing list now, so they will know that it's tax time. All of their friends will be, what is this tax thing we have to do? They know. I think our last one on this page is banking and cell phones. So Citibank is the main bank on campus that's over by the hospital. International students can set up a bank account at this branch without a social security number. They just need their passport and their UChicago ID card. They can set up a bank account there. As we mentioned before, if a student does not have an SSN, they may require additional documentation at different banks around Chicago. And most cell phone providers give some sort of option for those who don't have a social security number to get a phone. It might take a long time, but there are ways to do it. Okay. Any last questions about the main immigration stuff? Okay. The next big thing I want to talk to you about is the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. I've mentioned it a couple times. It's also called FERPA. What this is a federal law that protects the information of students on campus. So that means any student who is over 18 years old, we are unable to provide any information about those students to anyone outside of the university, including the student's parents, without express permission from the student. This is to protect both you and the student, because if someone calls and says, I'm so-and-so's parent, can you tell me where she lives? And we provide that information, and that's not actually you, but someone who's trying to get to the student, that is not good. So this law is in place to protect the students and to protect all of you. But what that means is I'm unable to provide any information about your student's immigration record without the permission of your student. So I know that you might have signed a consent form with the university talking about the academic record. That is separate from anything having to do with immigration. So although they can disclose academic information from you, immigration information is not covered by that. So for each incident, for each question they might have or you might have, we would need separate permission from the student in order to discuss that with you.
Sorry, I didn't wasn't there on that. Could you just repeat the second part of what you said? For every incident?
Sure. So for any question a student might have, work authorization question, or question about travel or something, we won't be able to discuss it with you unless we have permission from your student for each one of those.
In terms of an email or?
Yeah, an email or a phone call. Usually students might say, oh, my dad's going to call you. Can you talk to him about it?
And what is the disclosure form that you talked about for the academic record?
That, I'm not sure. It might have been mailed to you, but that's a little separate. So someone, I think, downstairs will be able to tell you about that. Yeah.
Nothing to do with the OIA.
Correct. So for OIA and for immigration, there's no disclosure form. It's just each separate thing. So I want to tell you this in case you call me and you say, my son, he said this, what is this? And I won't even be able to tell you if your son is here or not. So I'm not being rude. It's just a legal thing. What I could say is, if there were an F1 student who wanted to apply for work authorization, they would need to do XYZ. But honestly, the best person to get that information will be your student. Since it is very detailed information and can be sort of complicated, it's best for the student to contact me directly for anything with immigration. It is their record. It is their consequences if they don't do something right. So I am happy to speak with all of you for as much as I can. But I would definitely recommend having your student contact me for anything having to do with immigration. Any questions on FERPA?
This security social number has nothing to do with the health insurance that the student has here at the university.
It shouldn't. For health plans, like private health plans, if you were to apply for one in the US, they will probably ask for your social security number. But for the student insurance, that won't be a problem.
And this number is necessary to have someone, a student to have only when wants to have an employer.
Correct.
Okay?
Yes. Only even able to apply for it once you have employment.
Yes.
Sorry, I just had, this is not related to this directly. What is the, in your opinion or experience, the kind of pocket money that parents should give to students to, because everything is paid for, the food, lodging, and everything.
No money.
What is?
I don't know if I can answer that for you.
Yeah, I know, but it's kind of, since we don't live in the US.
If you have questions about like what specific things cost, I could tell you that, but I'm not sure I'd be able to provide a number. Financial aid might be able to give you suggestions on that. I think they have kind of a suggested living expenses cost that will be a better opinion than mine, which will just be guessing. Yeah. To move on, oh, did you have a question? I have my cards with me. I'm sorry? Yes, you can reach me through this general email. I also have cards with me. Before we conclude, I wanted to go over some campus resources that might be useful for your international students during their time here. The first one is Let's Talk. As we mentioned before, this is a very academically rigorous program. It can be something that's completely different from anything a student has done before. These students are coming from all over the world. They might not have had previous experience in the US. It can be very isolating. So there are very many resources on campus where students can reach out to talk to someone if they need to, if they're feeling stressed or homesick or anxious. We have a weekly Let's Talk program run through our office where students can come confidentially talk to someone, no one finds out about it, and just kind of relieve that stress. It doesn't go on their immigration record. We don't tell you. It's just a confidential service we offer. We have an Office of Multicultural Student Affairs that might be of interest to the students. Undergraduate Housing Office can answer all those questions about where to stay over winter break, if that comes up. And the Transportation and Safety and Security Office will be a very good resource for the students to learn how to stay safe on campus, get around at night safely. My 2 pieces of advice, you tell your students, don't walk alone at night and don't wear headphones when you're walking. It's pretty simple, but that's the biggest thing you can do to prevent being a victim of crime in Chicago is don't wear headphones when you talk or when you walk.
My daughter said she heard just a night drop-off thing has been canceled. Is that true?
Absolutely not, no. They run all night. It's a free shuttle with your UChicago ID. There's probably information about it downstairs. All of your students will attend a safety and security session where they learn about those programs. Last year it did change slightly the way it's running, but it is not canceled. It is still running strong. Last thing I wanted to mention is Chicago Winter. There are some resources in here, recommended items for your student to have, especially if they have not been through a proper Chicago winter or Midwestern winter before. It does get very cold. The average temperature during January is 14 degrees Fahrenheit, so 10 degrees Celsius. Pretty cold. Snow can be anywhere from a couple inches to a couple feet. We have a lake, a big, beautiful lake that's very windy and cold in the winter. So the winters here are pretty brutal and cold, so make sure your students prepare everything they need to go. There's also some tips on here about winter clothes shopping if you need to purchase any of these items, big coats, thermal underwear, that kind of thing. So that is all I have for you. Thank you very much for coming. I am open for questions, either as a group or afterwards, so nice to meet all of you. Welcome to Chicago.